It's too good to be true, Selena thought, grinning as she reached out and took Gabe's hand, turning his SUV onto a long-winded road leading to their new house. Jade glanced at Selena and smiled back at her. Then he returned his gaze to the road. A warm breeze slipped through the open passenger window and blew a few strands of Selena's long, upburned hair across her eyes. She laughed and brushed them away. She turned to look at her fiancé's handsome profile. Jade didn't notice her gaze. His eyes were on the road ahead. How did I get this lucky? Selena asked herself. All Selena's friends agreed that Cade was an amazing catch. He had it all. To start, Cade was the embodiment of a cliché, tall, dark, and handsome, with wavy black hair and deep-set green eyes under thick black brows. Jade had the kind of face a romance novelist would describe as chiseled. Selena thought Cade looked like a rugged movie star. He had a prominent nose, full mouth of straight white teeth, a sharp chin of an action hero. He even had the enchanting dimple in that chin, and his mouth quirked in the endearing, lopsided way that when he grinned. He had the kind of whiskers that grew up at the speed of light. Even though Cade shaved every morning, his 5 o'clock shadow showed up by 10 o'clock a.m. It added to that I could beat you up if I wanted to appearance. Fortunately, however, Cade didn't go around beating up people. He didn't have the brain or personality of an action hero. He wasn't a man's man. Selena didn't like a man like that. The man who wanted you to feel their muscles and regale you with stories of their athletic prowess. Jade was a lot more subtle than that. Yes, he was fit and played several sports, and yes, he has a very fine muscles, thank you very much. But there was more to Cade than his looks. Jade was smart and driven. He graduated in the top of their college class, and he had a great high-paying computer science job, lined up with a top company. He was also romantic, attentive, and funny. As if all that wasn't enough, Jade was clean and tidy and could cook. Oh yeah, and he loved his mom. Jade's mom was the reason he and Selena were moving to his hometown. Yes, his new company was located there, but he only applied to it after he suggested to Selena that they move because his mom was getting up there in age. Jade's mom had given birth to Cade in her late 40s, so she was turning 70 this year. Cade wanted to be close to his mom to help her out if she needed it. Selena thought that was so sweet. On top of everything else, Selena must, as she squeezed Cade's hand. Cade now had Selena, and she was an amazing catch too. Selena grinned at herself praising, but hey, it was true. Selena was smart, nice, and she knew men found her to be beautiful. In fact, it was her looks that had paid for her college degree. She was a tall and natural slender, and she modeled since she was 16. She'd done really well in the modeling world. Her earnings had more than covered college tuition and room and board. Her combination of pale, light, freckled skin, large hazel eyes, high cheekbones, and sensual lips, according to her agent, was, for reasons she never fully understood, highly sought after. Yeah, Selena and Cade were the perfect couple, and they were going to be married in a few weeks. It was like a fairy tale, without any trolls or ogres, at least so far. Sometimes in the middle of the night, Selena would wake up suddenly. Her chest would feel tight, her skin chilly and calmy. She figured it was the mini anxiety attack, and they made her feel stupid. She freaked out not because something was wrong, but because everything was right. All Selena's friends had some kind of drama in their lives. Selena's life was sailing along perfectly. What was it they said about the other shoe in those freak-out moments in the middle of the night? Selena knew she was waiting for that shoe to drop, but it wasn't dropping today. Selena pulled her gaze from Cade and looked out the open window next to her. She was delighted by what she saw. Selena and Cade were attending college in a large metropolitan area. That was where Selena had been born and raised, too. Selena didn't hate the city she lived in her whole life, but she didn't love it either. She's always gravitated towards the countryside, to nature, to small towns. Cade's hometown wasn't exactly a small town, but it was smallish. It actually had been a small town until the tech company that Cade would be working for had set up its headquarters in that area. A huge complex had created hundreds of new jobs and drawn thousands of new people to the regime. Cade had told Selena new subdivisions were built. Malls showed up outside the tall's original core. Cade and Selena, however, wouldn't be living in the new areas. They bought a quite old farmhouse that sat in its own 5 acres of mayonnaise and apple orchards on the outskirts of town. The pale gray 2-story house, plus attic, with a massive detached garage and large front porch, was a fixer-upper, but Cade and Selena thought the work would be fun. When they were done, they'll have the perfect house suited for them. Selena was excited to move into the house and start the renovations, but she had to wait 2 weeks for that. Cade was old-fashioned. They wouldn't live together until after they were married. Cade lifted a hand from the steering wheel and pointed through the windshield. The movers beat us here. Barely. A trace of humor hummed through his smooth, deep voice. Cade had a great speaking voice. He could have been a disc jockey. Selena looked ahead. A bright blue moving van was turning into the driveway that curved past the apple trees that surrounded the farmhouse she and Jade had brought together. I thought they had another stop to make. They must have taken the bypass, Selena said. I didn't have to visit 3 country stores because they were so cute and might have vintage clothes. Jade teased. Selena laughed. Jade smiled at the sound. He said her smile sounded like a cartoon princess's. Although Selena's speaking voice was slow and smooth, her laugh was high-pitched and musical. I always expected little animated birds and forest creatures to come running when you laughed, Jade had told her in the second date. That might have been what made her fall for him. Selena playfully slapped Jade's arm. I found 2 vintage hats and a stunning hostess skirt in those stores, and I had to have that vintage dress. I write about the stores on my blog. It will be a business expense. That's my girl, Jade said. Always thinking like an entrepreneur. Selena smiled. That was another one of Jade's great qualities. He appreciated Selena's success. In college, Selena had a major in businesses. In the previous year, as part of a class project, She started an online business, a blog, and a website devoted on helping women to be their true selves. She created info products, ebooks, and audio packages that improved women's self-esteem and helped them look and feel their best. Her packages and her blogs became so popular so quickly that Selena had earned enough from the whole enterprises to match Jade's contribution to the down payment for their new house. His share was an inheritance from his recently deceased grandaunt. Selena planned to continue running the business after they're married. She was thrilled she'll be able to work at home. She wanted to be custom country bride, a happy homemaker, who also happened to be building an online empire. Jade turned into their driveway. He leaned forward eagerly, his eyes bright. Selena loved seeing him so happy. Jade was never actually unhappy, but he leaned forward the quiet and serious side. He'd been very intense about his studies. She assumed he'd be the same about his work. He was really excited about his new job. He'd been talking about it most of the way here. Jade pulled the SUV up beside the moving van. He turned off the engine and swerved to look at Selena. Ready for this? He asked her. What, moving into our house or getting married? Both. I can't wait. Selena grabbed his hand and kissed his finger. Jade had the best hands, large and square with the faintest trace of black hair on the back. She entwined her long, thin fingers in his thick, large knuckle ones. She held their hands. Let's do this. Letting go of Jade. Selena grinned and threw open the passenger door. She got out of the SUV and inhaled the sweet smell of an apple tree, tiny white blossoms. Wow! Selena threw out her arms and spun in the circle. I'm going to get some blossom every spring. Jade got out of the SUV and chuckled Selena's enthusiasm. He waved at the two muscular guys who were opening up the back of the van. The movers, Ed and Bailey, had picked up Jade's things first. Then they come to the apartment Selena had shared with her roommate Val, and they added her belongings in the van. I thought we'd spend the afternoon here overseeing the move. Then I'll take you to my mom's house, Jade said. Sounds good. Selena would be staying with Jade's mom until the wedding. Jade came around the front of the SUV. He gave Selena a quick kiss. You want to unlock the house? I'll go talk to the movers. Jade headed towards the two big men. Selena agreed and started towards the porch that ran along the front of the house. She loved the porch. She couldn't wait to buy a porch swing. Selena stood in front of the stone fireplace in the living room just beyond the farmhouse small slab floor entryway. She held a clipboard, and she checked off the burner that Ed, the larger of the two muscle-bound movers, was carrying in. That goes in the second bedroom to the right on the top of the stairs, she told him. Got it, he said. He headed towards the stairs. A couple seconds later, Bailey stepped into the house with a big brown steamer truck propped on his shoulder. Selena scowled at the dirty and scattered old truck with the age leather straps and the tarnished and dented brass crabs, locks, and edging. She wrinkled her nose at the trunk's muscular odor, which she could smell even from several feet away. What's that doing here? She asked. Don't ask me, Bailey said. I just work here. He shifted the truck. Selena sighed and pointed at the floor. Bailey set down the truck a few feet from Selena and tuggled back out the house. Selena walked up to the truck and glared at it, frowning. She tucked her clipboard under her arm and bent over to lift the trunk. Bailey had carried it as if it wasn't that heavy. Jade popped through the door moments after Bailey was outside. They almost finished with... Jade stopped when he saw Selena in front of the truck, and his face flushed and his jaw tightened. What are you doing? He snapped. Selena cringed at the edge of his voice. His tone was sharp, and it was wrapped with almost sounded like snarl. Jade had never lashed out like her like that before. He never looked this upset before, either. She wasn't sure how to respond. Selena decided she'll start with her best dirty look. She perfected the expression since childhood. She'll use it regularly on her big brother. She'll only have to pull out the look of a couple times before on Jade, though. Once he had failed to praise the chocolate chip cookies that she baked for him on the anniversary of their first date, and again when he made a snarky comment about how many shoes he had. Since then, he hadn't given her cause to glower until now. What do you mean, what am I doing? Selena flung back at him. What are you doing? I thought we agreed to bring only our best stuff. We can afford to buy new things. We don't need no old second-hand junk laying around. Jerry hurried over. He took Selena's elbow and started steering her away from the truck. Although she didn't want to walk away from the truck because she wanted to open it and see what was so important that Jade would get all uptight about it. She let him lead her to the other side of the room. Jade's face moved back to its personal pebble lines. He took a breath. Sorry, I didn't mean to be short with you. He gave his trademark lesson grin. What we agreed to bring was our best stuff and our memorabilia. I'm pretty sure a lot of your boxes are filled with photos and keepsakes of your childhood. Selena shrugged. Yes, but this? She just started the truck. When I asked you about it on the first night I went to your place, you said it was an old truck. You didn't say it was full of memorabilia, so I figured since it was so ratty, you'd leave it behind. What's even in there? Jade put his arm around Selena's shoulders. He shrugged. Oh, just some old stuff from my childhood. Keepsakes, like we agreed to. Selena made a face. Can't you store yours keepsakes something more, I don't know, modern? I thought you like antiques. Missed I have to have that vintage dress. Selena smiled. He had a point. Okay, so not modern. How about just prettier? Less creepy. That thing looks like it belongs in a haunted house or something. Jade's arm tightened around Selena's for an instant. He relaxed as fast as it squeezed, so she might have imagined a brief sensation of tension in Jade's muscle. I promise I won't insist we use the truck as a coffee table, Jade said. He looked down at Selena and gave her another of his irresistible grins. Selena had gotten to know Jade's mom pretty well over the couple of years she and Jade had dated. The lady was very sweet, with grabbling black hair that she won't in bob. She was more shorter than Jade's 6'2". She wasn't really as fit as her son, either. Jade's mom called me Jancy, dear. Reminded Selena of her own grandmother. Rounded shoulder and soft belly. Janice looked as sweet as she acted. She had a heart-shaped face with deep-set green eyes like Jade's, and her wrinkles, smile line around her eyes and mouth, somehow added to rather than subtract from her pleasant face, particularly no pastel poster pants and floor blouses. Jancy looked like a quintillion country mama, and it was clear she was comfortable with who she was. Selena liked that about James, and Selena was looking forward to spend morning time with her soon-to-be mother-in-law. She knew Lance was a great cook and even better baker. They spent several holidays at Jen's house, and Selena was excited about learning all Jancy's culinary tricks. Selena decided she'll ask Jason to start with the roast chicken Jen served the first night Selena was going to stay with her. How did Jensen make the chicken so mostly moist in the inside and crispy on the outside? Selena just had to know. Oh, it's all swish in hand, dear, Jensen said, deep-panting. Unlike her son's deep voice, Jensen's voice was girlish. She sounded more like a preteen with a senior citizen. Selena blinked at her. Jane laughed. She's always said that when someone's complimenting her, Jade said, reaching out to pat his mom's liver spy hand. Jensen winked at Selena. I'm just kidding, dear. I'll teach you. It's about getting the cooking temperature right, and a couple other secrets I pass along. Selena smiled and leaned back, totally stuffed. It was a good thing she didn't plan to model anymore. Eating like this wasn't going to do her figure any good. She wasn't too worried about it, though. She planned to take long walks along the great country roads near their new house. Selena looked around Jane's closely dining room. James lived in a sprawling white ranch-style house. According to Jade, the house used to be linked to an actual ranch that belonged to his great-grandparents, who had owned several hundred head of cattle. By the time Jade was born, though, the family had given up the cattle ranching. His grandparents had sold off the bulk in the land, keeping just a few acres for privacy around the home. Jade's dad had been a 40. He died of a heart attack when Jade was young. Because Jensen loved crummy figured dollies and overstuffed furniture, the interior of Jane's house was a lot fuzzier than Selena preferred, but it was homely too. You felt like you could relax and be yourself in this house. Jane stood and started gathering up dirty dishes from her oak tress table. Selena started to help, but Jancy waved her away. Cheesecake for dessert, anyone? Jane's arm stood up. Jancy laughed. I'll have a piece, and then I'm going to head back to the house, Jade said. I'll be up early tomorrow. I want to get in a job before work. Jancy patted Jade's arm. That's my boy. Fit as a fiddle. She grinned. And starting your new job, she turned to look at Selena. And a wedding coming up. It's all so exciting. It sure was. Selena wanted to laugh out loud in glee. She smiled widely at Jens. Thank you so much for letting me stay here and for helping with the wedding. Oh, pish-posh, dear, Jenny said. It's my pleasure. Selena had expected the 2 weeks she spent with Jens to be a whirlwind of wedding preparations, but it turns out Jens had everything well in hand. Selena only had a few details to handle. She had more time to work than she thought she would. Because Jens was a social butterfly with a seemingly endless numbers of clubs and commitments, she was rarely home during the day. She was so busy, in fact, that Selena wondered why Jensen needed Jade's help at all. But it didn't matter. Selena was happy to be here. She was, however, looking forward to moving into her new house. While she was with Jens, Selena was staying in Jade's old room, which Jens hadn't changed since Jade had moved out. Selena thought it was sweet that Jade's space-themed bedsheet was still on the twin bed, and his conventional pattern curtains still hanging over the windows. She was touched by the bookcases stuffed with sci-fi novels and old-school science, math, computer programming textbooks. She was also amused by the collection of plush toys and action figures that coexist on the tops of the chest of drawers and the desk tucked in the corner of the room. She was curious as well. She noticed a few photo albums and scrapbooks stacked on the floor in a small closet where she hung her clothes. Jade had never showed her photos of his childhood. She hoped the albums would show her what she's been missing. 4 days before the wedding, Selena realized she was too feely about her upcoming novels to get any work done. Janice was out. Kay was at work. Selena closed her laptop, which she squeezed between her several toy astronauts and plush frog, and she stepped over to the closet door. Pulling the door open, she sat cross-legged to the floor in front of the stack of albums. Selena reached to the first album, brushing the dust off its cover. Selena opened the leather-bound book and smiled at the photo of a gape-toothed little boy that looked up at her from the first page. Jay had been as cute as a kid as he is handsome as a man. Selena started flipping through the photos. The first 2 photos were pretty normal shots of Kay with his mom and dad in front of the birthday cake. The third page, however, was a little weird. At first, Selena didn't know what was she looking at. The photo showed little Kay in the near darkness. Around him, bright-colored illuminations nearly jump out in the picture's inky backdrop. Selena realized Jay must have been in a blacklight area. Flipping the page, Selena saw a photo of Freddy Fazbear, the namesake of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Selena had heard of the pizza place, but Jay had never mentioned it. Strange. A few more photos revealed that the blacklight arena was in Freddy's Pizzaplex. In one photo, Jay was pointing out the Pizzaplex glowing red sign. Selena had heard of Freddy Pizzeria, too. It was one of the first family fun centers built in the state. A combination of arcade and indoors carnivals and games and rides and food. The album had a photo of Kay in front of nearly every game in the ride in the complex, but the bulk of the photos were taken in the blacklight arena. According to a huge sign at the back of the arena, the place was called Lally'S game. That was something Selena had never heard of. The place looked pretty eerie for some reason. Even just studying a photo made Selena shiver. A thud from behind Selena startled her. She dropped the album and whipped around. Sorry, dear, Jenny said. I didn't mean to scare you. It's these aging legs of mine. Sometimes I get dizzy and walk right into walls. She laughed. Janice, wearing a power blue bolstered pantsuit, came to the room. What have you got there, dear? Selena picked up a muffled album. She rose to her feet. Oh, one of Jade's old photo albums, Janice said. How fun. She crossed the twin bed set. She patted the mattress. Show me what you found. Selena joined Janice on the bed. Sitting and opening the album, Selena inhaled the flowery scent of Janice's perfume as she flipped forward the last few pages she'd been looking at. The next picture in the album was yet another shot of Jade pointing happily at Lally game sign. Jade tapped the sign and smiled. Oh my, I have such fond memories of that place. Freddy's Pizzeria? Well, yes, but especially Lally's. Janice ran her index finger over the picture. It was Jade's favorite game. We couldn't get him out of the place. I think he could have lived there. He would have, she chuckled. Selena raised an eyebrow. The dark arena with its glowing neon green and purple and yellow geometric designs and prehistoric-looking caves and caverns didn't look all appealing to her. There was something off about it. Something that made her feel edgy for reasons she can't describe. Janice scooted closer to Selena and turned the page. She looked at the map picture and laughed. Selena didn't laugh. Her unsettled feeling deepened as she looked at the photo of Jade with what, at first glance, appeared to be an unfriendly version of a famous, friendly ghost but at the second glance was clearly a robot. That was Lally, Janice said, poking at the robot's round white face just above its soulless black eyes. Selena rubbed the back of her neck. It felt like ants was crawling out of her hair. Lally's was there to be the playmate for the kids who didn't have a friend to play with. Janice said Jade's best friend didn't like the game as much as he did, so he was usually in the arena by himself. Janice was sitting right next to Selena, but for some reason, her voice sounded like it was coming from far away. Selena was so mesmerized by Ally that she felt like she'd been pulled out of Jade's old bedroom and stuck into the photo with a small, disturbing robot. It was difficult to tell about the photo because Selena didn't know how tall Jade had been at the time, but Lally looked to be somewhere between 3 or 4 feet tall. Mostly white and smooth, with a plastic or rubbery outer shell. The bald robot had artificial arms and legs, and each bent in its limb. Its joints were black. The same blackness joined its neck and torso. The robot's outer shell had been given some vaguely human-like definitions. It had small ears and small nose, the faintest raised trace around eyebrows over the lightless black eyes, and some subtle muscular definition in the torso and limbs. Its mouth was barely upturned and curved, thick-lipped. Selena flinched as Janice turned to the next page in the album. Selena had forgotten Janice was even there. Janice didn't even notice Selena's slight movement. She pointed at the next picture, in which Selena and Gally stood together. The robot was positioned so it appeared to be looking up at Jade, and with the expression Selena thought was vaguely hostile. No, not hostile, possessive. The picture of the last one of the album. Janice rubbed his fingers over inside. One day, someone stole Lally, she said, and that was the end of that. Janice looked at her watch. Oh dear, is that time? I'm going to go pick some wheat rolls. Would you like to learn how to make them? Jade loved them. Selena was still staring at the photo of Jane and Lally. She looked at Janice. Was Jade sad? She asked. Janice turned. What do you mean, dear? When Lally was taken, was Jade sad? Janice looked at the album from Selena and closed it. No, dear. He was scared. Janice crossed to the closet and replaced the album on the stack. Then she brushed her hands together briskly. I'm going to change. I'll meet you in the kitchen, dear. Selena wanted to ask Janice what she meant, why was Jade scared. But Janice was clearly done with the conversation. She bustled out of the room. Selena reached for the sweater. She was suddenly cold. By the time Jade showed up a couple hours later at the end of his workplace, Selena's chills had passed. She was sweating when Jade strode in the kitchen and said, Those rolls smell delicious. Learning to perfect the dough had distracted Selena from her earlier fright. Seeing Jade through brought it back. Selena kept her thoughts to herself during the dinner of bean soup, fresh green, and homemade rolls. By the end of the meal, however, she was ready to confront Jade about it. She was so distracted by the memory of the pictures in Jade's old album that she couldn't look at his face without seeing the robot's face too. As if sensing that Selena wanted to talk to Jade privately, Janice shoo Jade and Selena out of the deck. I'll take care of the dishes. You two lovebirds need your private time. Selena didn't argue with Janice. Instead, he took Jade's hand and leaned him to the back door. Jade laughed when she tugged him over the big green cushionary glider at the edge of the large cineroplastic expanse that hugged most of the back of Janice's home. Are we going to make out? Jane asked, squeezing Selena's close as they sat. Selena didn't resist his snuggling, but after a few seconds she pulled away. She turned so she can sit sideways on the glider and look at Jade directly. Uh-oh, Jade said. You're wearing your let's talk about our feelings expression. In spite of the tension that she felt since she looked at Jade's album, Selena smiled. You know me so well, she said, and I plan to spend the rest of our lives getting to know you better. He said, see? Such a romantic. Selena was a very lucky woman. An image of a little Jade and Lally flashed through Selena's mind. She took a deep breath and let it out. Why didn't you ever tell me about Freddy's Pizzaplex? Selena asked. Jade was gazing at her affectionately when Selena started to speak. By the end of her question, she looked away from him. He looked away from her. The easy smile of his face disappeared for an instant. When the smile returned, it wasn't as easy. Whatever I thought you were going to say, Jade chuckled. It wasn't that. His chuckle was just a bit stern. Well, why didn't you ever mention Freddy's? I looked at one of your photo albums this afternoon. It was full of shots taken there. Your mom said you loved the place, especially that freaky attraction called Lally'S game. A muscle twitched at the corner of Jade's eye. He compressed his lip. You never said anything at all about Lally, Selena pushed. And clearly you liked that thing because it was in a bunch of photos. Jade shrugged. He narrowed his eyes. Have you told me about anything you liked when you were a kid? Selena blinked at the defensive. Throw it back questions? She crossed her arms. I might have forgotten a few little things, but yeah, I mostly have told you about my favorite things. And you talk about your childhood a lot, but you never mentioned Freddy's or Lally's. Your mom said Lally was your favorite game, and they had a hard time getting you out of the place. That's a pretty big deal for a kid. It's strange you haven't even mentioned it. Jade looked over Selena's shoulder. The sun had just tucked itself behind the rolling hills west of the ranch house. The sky was pink. A chilly breeze began to stir. The leaves of rhododendrons that flanked the deck. A few pushes bright purple blossoms blew free of their branches and danced through the air. Jade? Selena protested. What's going on? You're acting bizarre. Stood. I just had some bad memories from that time, okay? Someone got hurt. I don't like to talk about it. Without waiting for Selena's response, Jade turned and headed back inside. As he went through the door, he called to Janice, warmly, without a trace of coldness that had hardened the words. He just frowned at Selena. Want some help with those, Mom? Selena's wedding day was everything she hoped it would be. Almost. Although Selena's mom had wanted to throw a wedding so far over the top that it wouldn't have been able to be held on planet Earth, Selena, Cade, and Selena's dad, who was funding everything, was happy to agree that less was more, convinced Selena's mom that the casual wedding was more tasteful. Selena's brother David, who was as good looking as Selena was pretty, but who thought jeans and a black t-shirt was fashion, offered a winning argument. If you don't go along with what she wants, he told their mom, she and Jay would always elope. Instead of the ridiculous fluffy dress Selena's mom had chosen, a dress in which Selena would look like a miniature, Selena picked a sleeky, vintage slick dress with a high neck, long sleeves, and semi-full skirt. Rather than a vial with a 20-foot train, she had only a small spray of flowers in her hair, which she arranged into an equally sleek and simple French twist. Cade wore a navy blue suit with a white shirt and white tie. In addition to this downscale wardrobe, they chose to use as local apple blossom and white daisies for their flowers. Selena's mom had argued for a large party, but Selena and Kate had each chosen to have each of their best friends stand with them. Happily smiling, red-headed Val, wearing a wine-lined navy blue cocktail dress, was Selena's attendant, one of Jade's college buddies. Lanky and good-natured Greg, wearing navy blue pants and a white shirt, was Jade's best man. Although Selena's mom had argued for an upscale wedding venue and a fancy Carter reception, she yet again given in to Selena's preference, which was to be married outside. Janice was offered her backyard for the wedding and reception venue. She and her army of neighborhood lady friends also organized an unorthodox but fun and easy potluck reception. As Selena stood there under the apple blossom cover of the lush green garden which behind Janice's home, she faced her new husband after the minister. A politely smiled, curly-haired man, a tone. I now pronounce you husband and wife. This was the moment, the one Selena had envisioned for so long. Selena looked up at Jade's hooded eyes and expected to feel nothing but a rush of love and joy she held in her mind. Sigh. Unfortunately, the reality didn't live up to her expectations. Although Selena did feel her love for Jade as he smiled down at her, and she did feel happy to be his new wife, she also felt something she never thought she'd feel on her wedding day. She felt suspicious. For the first time in 2 years to have they been with Cade, Selena didn't fully trust him. Something about his weirdness over that truck and his fondness for that unpleasant little robot was bothering Selena. You may kiss your bride, the minister told Jade. Jade leaned down and took Selena in his arms. His embrace made her think of all the history together. It reminded her of how much he loved her. So, as she kissed him, she tucked away her rebellious distrust. Over the 100 people attended Selena and Cade's wedding, and because they'd been instructed to dress to the wedding, and because they had dressed to have fun, don't try dress to impress, everyone had a roaring good time. The food was incredible, the local custom band was expectedly talented and played everything from bluegrass to the rock to classics, which managed to make everyone happy at one point or another. Dancing wasn't one of Cade's talent, a man who had some shortcomings. He managed to shuffle through their slow song, and he got silly and jerked around the dance floor like a man being electrocuted during the fast songs. Selena danced her heart out. She had a blast. At the end of reception, before Selena and Cade got in their SUV, now bedrock with streamers and tin cans and feature a Just Hitch sign on the back, Selena's family came up to her to wish her well. Selena's handsome, gray-haired dad, happily casually in slacks and an open-collared pale blue shirt, hugged her first. As he held her close, he whispered, I'm so proud of you. Remember, be your own person. Trust your instincts. Always choose joy. Selena pulled back and smiled into her dad's wet eyes. She wiped her own tears away. I love you, Dad. Her brother hugged her next. He, too, whispered some advice for his ear. Don't screw it up. When Selena's mom, who stuck her guns and wore an expensive design creep gown to the wedding, Selena had to admit it was sure her lovely, tall, and regaled mother, put her arms around Selena's lap and asked, Are you happy? Selena was honestly able to ask, yes. By then, Selena had nearly forgotten about the odd feeling she had about Cade. She decided she just had pre-wedding jitters. That decision had solidified during the 2 blissful weeks that followed. Jade and Selena had decided to postpone their honeymoon for one thing. Jade had started his new job, and for another thing, they wanted to funnel their feeling time and their money into fixing up a farmhouse. Accordingly, they spent their wedding night in their new home. The next day was a Sunday, and they split day cuddling up in their new 4-poster king-size bed, their wedding present to each other, poring over design magazines and painted chips. It might not have been everyone's idea of a perfect day, but Selena felt like she was floating on the cloud. The floating cloud, however, plummeted to earth the next day. Jade went to work before 7 a.m. on Monday. Selena started her day more luxurious. Although Jade had loved to go for runs in the morning, Selena didn't like an early rise. And she didn't like running either, for that matter. After Jade left, she went a long brisk walk. When she came back, she made herself some peach spice herbal tea, still wearing the leggings and t-shirt she wore on her walk. Selena loved working at home. She took the tea in her office at about 9:30. Selena's office was a small spare room just off the living room. All it contained at the moment was a white metal folding table that led her laptop and desk lamp, her soft gray, tall black desk chair, the only piece of office furniture she scrolled on, and stacks of file boxes. Selena had big plans in this room, which she intended to implement over the coming week. But first, she needed to do a little actual work. Still floating in the post-wedding Europia, Selena smiled as she opened her laptop. She clicked on the icon for the website dashboard, and she began reading her most recent reader comments and respond to them. In the third comment, the reader thanked Selena for her helping her old baggage in the past. The words completely derailed Selena's plan to work, because they immediately made Selena think of Chad's hidden past, and his unnatural reaction to her curiosity in his hideous truck. Selena responded to the reader's comment, but she wasn't able to concentrate on the next one. She stood. She was going to find out what was in that truck. Selena didn't know whether Jade's truck had anything to do with whatever happened to Freddy's Pizzaplex, but she had the same strange reaction to both things. And Selena felt like the same disquieting feeling on both subjects. Something about Selena couldn't put a finger on told her that the two things are linked. After the conversation over the truck in the living room on that day, the movers had delivered their stuff. Jade had picked up the trunk and said, I'll stick this in the darkest corner of the attic. You'll never have to see it again. He grinned and winked at Selena, and she smiled back. However, the light exchange had been faked. Recalling the moment now, Selena remembered how forced that grin, wink, and smile had been. What if I want to see it again? Selena said out loud now. She closed her laptop and stood. Selena's tennis shoes made low squeaks against the old, uneven wooden flooring as she strolled into her office and trotted up to the second floor. When she reached the floor, she hurried down the long hall toward the doorway to the attic. Reaching the door, she took a deep breath and yanked it open. A puff of dust waffled in the hall, making Selena sneeze. A faintly musty smell followed the dust. Unlike the attic in the house Selena had grown up in, which had one of those pull-down stairways, the farmhouse attic was reached by a normal flight of stairs, slightly narrowed by the stairs leading from the first floor to the second. The wood raisers of the stairs were warped and yarn, but they were sturdy. Selena grabbed the white painted railing. The paint was dirty from years of use, and it was chipping. She headed to the stairs. Although Selena had explored the attic with the light when she and Jade had toured the house before they brought it, she hadn't even backed up to the soft roof space since they moved their stuff into the house. They agreed to have their long-term storage items put up here. Eventually, everything else was downstairs. Selena hadn't had a reason to come up here until now. If she was honest to herself, Selena had to admit that she's been waiting for this opportunity to come up here and look at Jade's truck. Even distracted she had been by the wedding, she mentally put finding out what was in the truck on the top of her to-do list. The mystery of it was clapping at her. Selena got on top of the stairs, and she reached for the stair pole for the single exposed bulb that lit in the attic. She yanked the string. Bright white light joined the yellow glow of the sun steaming through the dormer windows on either end of the big space. Because they haven't yet accumulated a lot of stuff in the needed long-term storage, just a few boxes of keepsakes and photo albums, a stack of luggage, and several plastic storage bins filled with holiday decorates. Selena loved holidays. The attic was still pretty wide open. Just a couple dozen boxes were stacked on the south end of the space. Selena looked around, taking a low crossbeam to emulate underside of the roof, the age-gray wood floor, and the musky glass of the pan windows. She and Jade had plans to finish the attic and turn it into a big recording room. And maybe one day it would be a playroom for their future kids. A lot of work would go into that project, but for now, at least the attic was functional as a storage. Selena strode over the stacks of boxes. Jade must have put the truck behind them. Or not. Behind the boxes, Selena found only more boxes. The trunk wasn't there. She frowned and turned in a circle. Given that the attic had no closets or hidden rooms, it was obvious the trunk wasn't where Chad had said he was going to put it. He lied. Selena grounded her teeth. She felt her shoulders tighten. All her suspicions, which had tucked away successfully since the moment during the wedding, flooded back in. Her husband was keeping something from her. Or had he gotten rid of the truck after all? Selena would bet big money that he hadn't. Huff with annoyance. Selena left the attic and trotted back downstairs. She closed the door in the attic and stood in her back to it. She looked up and down the hall. Where had Chad stashed the truck? Well, if it isn't in the house, Selena was going to have to find it. She closed the door of the attic and thought for a moment. Where would he put it? The garage? She decided. That's where she would have to put it if she'd been Cad. The garage was more Cad's domain than it was Selena's. It was a 3-car garage, and he planned to turn 1/3 of it into a workshop. The other 2 stalls would be their vehicles. Although Chad had a lot of tools and athletic equipment and gardening stuff, there wasn't so much of it that could bury a truck. It only took about 15 minutes of poking around the garage determined that the truck wasn't there. Now what? Selena returned to the house. The farmhouse wasn't huge. It was only about 2,000 square feet, with 3 bedrooms and 1.5 bathroom. In all, the house had 5 closets plus a pantry. Selena started with the pantry. She was pretty sure the truck wasn't there because she had been in and out of the room several times. But it could have been buried under boxes of pots and pans that she hadn't opened yet. It wasn't. Selena moved to the closet door. No yuck. No luck. She tried the linen closet, the closet in the room. Again, she didn't expect to find it there and didn't. And the closet in the room where they were going to set up for guests. No truck. The last closet was in what was now in a complete empty room. They hadn't decided on when this room would be, so they just closed it up for now. Selena hadn't been in there at all since the day they made their offer in the house. The door was an empty room, creaked when Selena pushed it open. The sound was so immense of the soundtrack of the scary movie that Selena wouldn't have been surprised to find the truck sitting right inside the door, opening like a gaping maw of a demon ready to. Selena stepped into the room. It was empty. Setting her jaw, Selena marched across the room and jerked open the closet door. She frowned. Although the closet's hanging rod was empty and the shed above it was bare, beneath the rod of the shelf was a stack of boxes. This closet should have been as empty as the room. Why were there boxes in there? Selena reached for the box. She lifted, practically tossed it over her head. It was so light that her lift was overkill. She shook the box. It was empty. Selena picked up the next box, and the next. Every box was empty. Why would Chad have filled this closet with empty boxes? They agreed to break down the boxes for recycling. There was only one reason to stack empty boxes. There had to been used for a makeshift screen, to hide something. Heat beginning to pulse into Selena's ears. She started tossing empty boxes out of the closet. 8 empty boxes. She threw them on a vacant room's wooden floor. Then she looked at the pile of blankets behind the boxes. What were the blankets doing in here? They should have been in the linen closet. There was also one reason for a stack of blankets. They created a nice, thick clock. They, too, were meant to hide something. Emitted with a growl of anger, Selena threw aside the blankets, and there it was. The truck squatted in front of her. Its 2 clasps in its center locked looked like like a grumpy face locking up in her. A grisly, empty face. Selena didn't waste any time. She dropped her knees. She undid the clasp with 2 metal clicks. Sorry about that. Then she tried to open the lock, but it wouldn't open. It was, well, locked. Where would Cade keep the keys? Selena sat back at her heels. Then the key would be anywhere. Selena appeared to lock. Could she pick it? Selena gave the truck a dirty look, then stood and strode out the room. She trotted along the hall and jogged down the stairs. She ducked into her office. Sitting, she opened her laptop and got on the internet. Her fingers were poised over the keyboard, preparing to type in how to pick a steamer truck lock. But then she dropped her hands. She closed the laptop. The heck with it. She didn't want to mess around with learning how to pick a lock. She'd be better off breaking the lock. Selena got up and left her office. It took just a few minutes to return to the garage and get some tools. Not sure what she needed. Selena grabbed a hammer, a crowbar, and a couple of screwdrivers. Once she had them, she returned to the house. She ran back up the stairs, strode into the third bedroom. She dropped to the floor in front of the truck. She had ever needed to open a steamer lock before, so she didn't know what she was doing. Maybe she should find a video on prying open a truck before just assuming it would breeze. She discovered quickly that the crowbar and hammer weren't helpful. Pounding and prying the large tool didn't do more than make a loud noise and put a few more jagged tears on the filthy brown drunk cloth that covered the truck's wooded states. Once Selena opened the larger tools, and she picked up the screwdriver, she had more luck. She finally popped the lock free from the truck by using a 2-fronted praying attack with both screwdrivers. When the lock pinched loose from the truck and chattered to the floor, she dropped the screwdrivers and did a little fist bump. Yes! She growled. Eagerly, she put her hands on both sides of the lid. She started to lift it up. From downstairs, a thud told Selena the front door had just closed. She heard footsteps. Chade's footsteps. Chade, her convincing, sneaky husband, was home, and boy, was he in trouble. Her hangled, troubling curiosity. Selena let go of the trunk lid. She leaped to her feet and ran out the room. She raced downstairs to confront her lying husband. Jade looked up from shaking water out of his hair when Selena reached the bottom of the stairs. "Boy, it's really coming down out there," Jade said. "Thought I'd come home and have lunch with beautiful wife, and halfway there, this guy decided to try to drown me." Selena glanced at the window. It must have started raining when she was getting the truck unlocked. She hadn't even noticed. Selena looked at Jade. She saw in his dark green polo shirt and his khakis were drenched. Normally, Selena would have made a joke about getting him out of his clothes, but she didn't feel like joking. She didn't care how soaked she was. She clenched her fist against her hip. "Why didn't you put the truck when you said you were going to put it?" Jade wiped his face and looked at Selena. "What? The truck? You didn't put it in the attic. You hid it behind an empty box in the cleaner. Why did you do that?" Jade's face went so stony they really could feel like cleansing. "Did you open it?" Selena frowned at him. She didn't answer his question. Jade rushed over to him. His soaping loafers made slightly squashing. She grabbed her arms. "Did you open it?" she repeated. This time he threw out the words so fast that she ran together. "You didn't answer my question," Selena said. Jade gave a little shake. "Did you open it?" Selena gave a tiny on her finger. She jerked out his grabs and stepped away from him. "Did you open it?" he repeated. This time the words were spaced out. "Did you open it?" His tone was slow, almost threatening. "No," Selena barked. "I was about to, but I heard you coming home and—" Jade didn't want to let her finish. She brushed past her and pounded the stairs. Selena gaped at him for an instant. Then she took off in surprise and ran after him. Jade got into the dirt bedroom seconds later before Selena caught up to him. By the time she did, he was on his knees in front of the truck, taking deep breaths, and he lifted the trunk's lid. Selena stepped behind Jade and looked down at the truck. She inhaled her pent-up breath. The truck was empty, completely empty. "No." Jade breathed. He lifted his head and looked around. He wasn't saying. His gaze started around the room. His eyes moistened. For a second, Selena thought he was going to cry. Then he wiped a hand over his face and looked back down the empty truck. Selena didn't know what she expected to find a truck, but seeing it empty had flooded her relief. She didn't know what the deal was with Chad and the truck, but at least it didn't contain something horrible. "I'm so sorry," Selena said. Selena put her hand on his wet shirt. She could feel his shoulder trembling. In spite of being drenched, she didn't feel cold. So she assumed that he was taken because he was so angry with her. She had, after all, not only made it clear she didn't trust him, she violated his trust too. She poked into his private stuff. She had been furious if he had done that to her. Not that he had anything to hide. "I'm really sorry," she said. I didn't know. It just bugged me. Why were you so secretive about the super truck? And I'm so sorry. But I should have trusted you. I should have trusted..." Sid stood up. He wrapped his arms around her. "It's okay," he said. "It's okay." Selena wasn't sure if it was okay. Pressed against his wet shirt-covered chest, he could feel his racing heart, and she felt the tightness of his muscles on his arm and shoulders as he returned his embrace. She also smelled something she never smelled on Jade before. It was the odor of Rena's sweat. She stepped back and looked at the odor of the resin's sweat. Oh, sorry again. She stepped back and looked at his face. His forehead was moist. He wiped away the rain. So it wasn't that. It was pre-insumption. He was scared. That's what she was smelling. It was the stench of fear. Selena knew it wasn't okay, no matter what Jed said. She didn't discover what not okay it was, though, until that night. Jed had settled himself pretty quickly after he closed the truck and stuck in the back of the closet. He ignored the shattered empty boxes and the blankets. It was as if he didn't see them. Most likely he didn't want to explain why he had gone to such lengths to hide an empty trunk. Selena was so assured of the empty truck that she didn't press Jed about why he hid in the way. Instead, she said brightly, "I'll make us tuna sandwich." Jade had changed his clothes, coming downstairs in another pair of khakis and a dark blue polo shirt. Jade's wardrobe was a little limited. He had made his little talk about his work while they ate. Selena told him about her morning walk. The conversation sounded okay, with all the right bits of humor, but it hadn't been quite right. There was an undertone of their words, one that both of them ignored. Jade had returned to work after lunch. Selena forced herself to put her whole truck business out of her mind. She had to get some work done, too. Dinner was a little more normal than lunch had been. She tried a new pasta recipe, and Chad had said he loved it. He even had a second helping. Only a barest trace of tension had remained between them by the time they got ready for bed. The tension returned, though, when Jade gave Selena a peck on the cheek and told her he was exhausted and needed to go right to sleep. Usually they cuddled before settling, snuggling together and talking drowsily about their plans for the next day. Not that night. Jade had got under the covers and covered his eyes. Selena was wide awake, but she got into the bed next to him, and she turned the lights off. They lay next to each other, not touching, not talking. Selena listened to Jade even breathing. He was pretending to be asleep, but he wasn't. There was an outgoing hiss in his breath when he was really asleep. Selena didn't hear the hiss. Selena, who practically meditated in yoga, was more adept at freeing sleeping. She slowed her breathing and relaxed her muscles. She knew she appeared to be asleep, but she wasn't. Selena wasn't sure how long she focused on her breathing before she heard Jade stir. She felt the covers lift. A cool air current fluttered against her bare arms. The mattress shifted. Jade was up. The floor creaked. He was moving away from the bed. Selena just barely opened her eyes. She shifted her head slowly and quietly. Because they hadn't yet agreed on the color scheme for the bedroom, the two-pan windows that looked over the backyard were covered only with the flimsy shears of previous owners that had left behind. The shears did look a block to their light. Now they let in the radiance of a three-quarter room and flimsy shimmers that spray across the room. Selena could clearly see Jade in that gleam. Selena watched as Jade got down on his knees. His head disappeared below the level mattress. He seemed to be looking under the bed. Jade raised his head. Selena closed her eyes. She listened to his footsteps move away from the bed. She opened her eyes again. Jade was moving around the room slowly. It looked like he was searching for something. His head swerved left and right and back again as he moved from the side of the rooms to hers. On her side, he opened the closet door. He looked in the closet, pushing back clothes for a few seconds, then shut the door. Selena closed her eyes again when Jade turned around. She concentrated on her easy breathing as Clay dragged into bed and got under back the covers. This time, Jade's breathing settled in his familiar hissing rhyme a few minutes before he lay down. It took Selena a while before she joined him in sleep, but the sleep didn't last long. Jade's footsteps woke Selena, laying on her side now. She glanced at the clock. It was only an hour since they first turned off the lights. Jade was on the prowl again. Listening intently, she could tell she was going through the same searching routine. Selena debated whether to turn on the lights and ask Jade what he was doing before they moved into this house. Before she found out his particular attachment to the truck and his mysterious past at Freddy's, Selena would have met the issue head on. She wouldn't have hesitated to ask Jade what he was doing. Now she knew if she did that, she wouldn't get the answer, and she wasn't up to dealing with any more of Jade's envious just yet. Jade got back to bed, and he returned to sleep. So did Selena. They repeat this progress 3 more times that night. Come morning, Jade looked wiped out when he got up to his run. Selena was so excited she went back to sleep until Jade returned to his run. She pretended that she was still asleep until he showered and got ready for work. She didn't get out of bed until she heard his SUV headed down the driveway. Selena put up Jade's narcolepsy paranoia for nearly a week before she finally had to ask him what was going on. By then, she was dragging from lack of sleep. She was fed up. On the 7th night that Selena woke up to see Jade looking under the bed, she sighed heavily and leaned over to turn the ginger jar lamp on her nightstand. Jade's head shot up. His hair derived. He blanked into a sudden illumination. He looked like a little kid caught in the act of some mischief. Selena scoot into a sitting position. "What exactly are you doing?" she asked. Jade blinked again. "What do you mean?" he asked inanely. Selena pulled the covers up and crossed her arms over. "Don't play dumb. You know what I mean. You've been jumping in and out like a bat in the bed, like a jack-in-the-box for the last week. What's going on? You act like you're checking for the boogeyman." Jay rubbed his eyes and made a face. Sighing, he pushed himself up and sat on the edge of the bed. Selena stared at him in his broad shoulders and his hair curled up behind his ears. She loved those curls. "Jade?" Jade turned, then slipped under the covers with her. She laid back and stiffened so she could look at him. She lay down, too, facing her. Selena reached out and touched Jade's cheek. It was red and cold. She looked at dark circles under his eyes. They had been since the night he started acting paranoid. Jade reached up and caught her hand. He kissed her knuckle. "I never wanted to tell you about any of this. I just wanted to forget, but now..." "Jade, what is it? What's going on?" Jade took a deep breath. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He pulled away from her. "Sorry, I need to stand for this." Selena's stomach hurled. What he was going to tell her. She sat up again, but she wrapped herself in the comfort. Even though the room's temperature was mid, she felt icy. Jade began to pace around the room. "Mom told you about someone stole Lally, but that isn't true," he said. He glanced at Selena. She didn't say anything. She concentrated on composing her face in an expression of calm, not judgmental. "What happened," Jade went on, "was that they were doing revelations in the Pizzaplex, and a construction scuffle collapsed during the round of Lally'S game. The collapse punched a hole in the game's exterior walls. Shep stepped over the window and looked out at night. The moon was close to the full now. Its shivering and radiance put Jade in the spotlight. The auditorium was evacuated, and Lally was closed down because Lally went missing." Jade went on. "It was assumed he's been stolen." "But you said that's not what happened," Selena said, glanced over at her. He shook his head, then turned back towards the window. "For weeks after Lally'S game arena was closed, I kept seeing Lally. I saw him everywhere. He and him." Selena thought, "Not it?" "I saw him over the top of my shelves one day," he said. "One afternoon, he was on my desk, behind my toy astronauts. Once I parted the cloak of my closet, and I saw Lally standing there in the back of the closet, looking out at me. I saw him once in the bedroom, behind the shower curtain, several times. I spotted him in the backyard. He was always hiding, like he was playing the perpetual game of hide-and-seek." Goosebumps crept into Selena's arm. She rubbed him. "Whenever I spotted him, he was always frozen on that spot, always smiling that half-smile he had." Jade stopped talking. He rubbed his own arms as if he had goosebumps too. Selena cleared her throat. "Was someone playing a joke on you?" Jade turned. His expression was resigned. "I wish. No. Lally followed me home." Selena's breath caught. Her heart started thumping so hard that her chest she was sure Jade could hear it. "Lally messed with me for weeks before I finally stopped him." Jade called a slightly triumphant grin. "You know, Mom's sewing room." She nodded. "One day when she was at her meetings, I took everything out of that room. I wasn't much then. She just had a sewing machine on the table, that dummy she pinned her patterns on, and a few plastic storage bins. I emptied the room, and I dragged the truck into the room. I figured so I wouldn't be able to resist hiding in the truck." Selena bit her lip and remained silent. "I waited an hour," Jade said. "Then I ran into the room, and I locked the truck. I trapped him." Selena frowned. "Did you look in the truck to be sure he was there?" Selena shook his head. "I didn't want to risk him getting back out. I just locked it. I knew he was inside." Selena gazed at the man who was, up until now this moment, she thought was one of the smartest people she ever met. Jade was a programming genius, and he could talk almost any subject. His mind was sharp. His logic was impeccable. Usually. The only thing Selena could conclude about what Jade just said was some part of his psyche was stuck in his childhood. He had been so traumatized by the destruction of his favorite game that he created an elaborate fantasy around it. That had to be it. Obviously, Chad hadn't trapped anything. He locked into an empty truck, but in his childhood fantasy, he convinced himself that his tormentor had been contained. It was his confidence that looked him up, Lally, that made his fear in the robots go away. That was why he stopped having hallucinations about Lally. He obviously been hallucinating. There was no other explanation. Jay returned to bed. He sat down and rotated towards Selena. "Say something." Selena took a breath. Then she laid out her theory. She finished with a story with her own childhood. "My best friend Zoe. You remember me talking about her. Went through a phase where she were in first grade. She was sure that a big purple monster was living under her bed. I mean, she was sure of it. She talked about it all the time. Eventually, her parents did something to what you did. They said they were laying a trap for the monster, and they caught." Selena put her air quotes around the word. "The monster in the big box. After that, Zoe was fine. The same thing happened to you. When a child is convinced that something is trapped and can't hurt them anymore, the fear of it disappears." Jade started to shake his head in the middle of Selena's story. By the end, he was shaking his head so hard that his hair was whipping in his eyes. "Lally isn't imagining a purple monster. He's real, and he was in the truck before you unlock it." Selena didn't miss Jade's use present tense. "Lally isn't? Not Lally wasn't?" Selena decided to set this troubling detail aside for the moment. It was more than she could deal with. She scooted across the room and took Jade's hand. "Jade, honey, nothing was in the truck. You were a little boy, a traumatized little boy, and you rest assure yourself by telling yourself Lally was locked in the truck. That's why you didn't stop seeing it. It's basic psyche." Jade didn't respond. For several seconds, he was frozen, staring at the floor. Finally, Jade reluctantly squeezed Selena's hand. "We need to get some sleep." He got under the covers. "Turn off the lights," he said. Selena opened her mouth to object. She knew Jade was rejecting her explanation, but she was tired, and she didn't want to think about it anymore. She turned off the lights and lay down. Jade scooted over and wrapped into her arms, spooning her. Selena forced herself to concentrate on Jade's familiar warmth, and she made herself ignore the frantic pace of his beating heart, which she could feel against her back. Even after Jade's heart rate slowed and he settled into sleep, Selena once again remained awake for a long time. The next couple of weeks passed relatively uneventfully. On several nights, Selena and Kate spent the evening with Janice. They helped her with chores and had dinner with her. If they weren't with Janice, Kate worked late. He worked so late that he missed dinner. He'd come home just before 10 or so. They have a cup of tea or hot chocolate, talk about their day, and then go to bed. Both Selena and Cade were fitfully, but they were sleeping. If Cade was getting up during the night, Selena didn't hear him. The dark circles under his eyes, though, didn't go away. Selena kept herself busy during the day with both work and revelations. The first week after Cade told her about Lally, she threw herself into setting up her home office. She finished the hardwood floor and painted the walls with mossy green, hanging curtains in stripes of gray and the same green of the walls. She then went out to the found in perfect rug, desk, counter and a new set of fitting filing cabinets. She hung her favorite print up the wall, and she declared the office done. Once she was finished with the office, Selena demolished the half bath. It was great to swing a sledgehammer over and over. Slamming heavy steel against proclaimed tiles was deliciously catering. Over the weekend after she destroyed the bathroom, Selena and Cade tilted the floor and installed a new toilet, vanity, and sink. They worked from sun up to sundown both days. Was there something a little frantic about their pace? Probably, but neither of them mentioned it. After they finished the half bath, Selena turned into a energetic painting lady. After they agreed on the pale tone color of the walls with white trim, she painted the entire main room floor. When she was done, she and Cade went on a marathon furniture shopping spree, purchasing an antique cherry dining room set, a navy blue sofa and a love seat, a navy blue rug with a cream and tipping geometric pattern, an oak coffee table with 2 matching end tables, and a pair of antique brass lamps for the end tables. Selena found the perfect tack and dark blue drapes for the living room, and then she freshly brought throw pillows and art. She spent several hours arranging and rearranging the furniture, finally settling on a configurative that put the sofa and love seat in the middle of the room. She positioned them so that she flanked the fireplace. The dining room and the living room were done by the end of the month. The kitchen was going to require a professional, so they hadn't tackled that yet. However, with most of the main living areas complete, Selena decided it was time to have some people over. Cade had made many new friends on the job. On a few nights he didn't work late, he and Selena were invited to several dinners so he and Selena could get to know Jade's new co-workers and their spouses. Between those people and the friends Selena was making on her walks and during her shopping trips, they were developing an enjoyable social network. Let's have the Petersons, the Taylors, and the Lees over for dinner this weekend, Selena suggested one night when they cuddled on the sofa, sipping hot chocolate. We owe them all dinner. We owe them? Jade said. He grinned at Selena. Did I miss something? Did we sign a tit-for-tat contract when we had dinner at their house? Selena lightly smacked his thigh. You know what I meant. Yes, I do, Miss Intweek. Selena rolled her eyes. I'm thinking something casual. It's warm enough. We could barbecue. Sure, Jade said. He sat down his mug and put his arm around Selena. That sounds fun. On nights like this, Selena could almost convince herself that everything was fine. She could almost forget about the truck and about Lally. Almost. The night of the barbecue, they had perfect weather. It was warm and the sky was full of sparkling stars that looked like they had been hung above their heads like party decorations. After a feast of burgers, macaroni salad, green salads, chips, and corn on the cob, followed by homemade brownies, Jacine's recipe, Jade said they taste just like his mom's, the 4 couples settled down around the gas fire pit. Selena had installed just days before the get-together. They all reclined on the plush navy and cream striped chairs about the day before. How about charades? Selena asked. Grace Peterson, a petite woman with a short cropped blonde hair, popped out of their chair. I want to be the one in Hugh's team. She poked her husband, Ron, and made him change places with her. Ron, an unusual pale guy with long brown shirt, rolled his eyes as he good-naturedly gave it to his wife's game of musical chairs. He noticed Selena's questioning look. Hugh isn't a film and literature buff, he explained. More like a trivia nut, Hugh's Taylor's wife, Farisa said. A tall, broad-shouldered redhead. Farisa dwarfed her short and bald husband, but appearance side, they appeared to be a perfect match. It was impossible to miss that they were crazy about each other. Selena grinned. Well then, I want to be on Hugh's team too. Everyone laughed. Grace stood. I got one. Hugh and Selena and their other teammate, Ava Lee, an athletic brunette, looked up at her. When Grace made the universal sign for a movie, Hugh winked at Selena and Ava. They grinned. Grace held up 6 fingers. 6 words, Selena said unnecessarily. Grace held up 1 finger. First word, Ava said. Grace nodded. Then she shook her head. She held up 1 finger again. Selena frowned, confused. Point? Huey asked. She leaned towards Selena. The clue is 1 finger. Point break. Selena shouted. Jade snorted out laugh. That's just 2 words, sweetie. Selena blushed. Grace shook her head. She started lifting and lowering her arms like she was flying. The bird, Selena bird. She blushed deeper the second the words were out of her mouth. Then she laughed. Ignore me, I'm math challenged. Everyone else laughed too. Grace drew on her lower lip. Then her eyes lit up. She bared her teeth and shifted her gaze to the far left. She looked arranged. Again, Selena shouted without thinking. The Shining! She was pretty pleased with herself for realizing Grace was mimicking the star actor's Grace expression from the movie. Everyone laughed. Selena clapped her hand over her mouth. She shook her head and then dropped her head and laughed too. I really can't count, can I? She looked over to Hugh. He smiled at her, then calmly said, 1 flew over the cuckoo nets. Grace clapped and rushed over to give Huey a high five. Selena shook her head. Sorry for being so dense. Ava laughed. It's a drill then. Who has time to count words? I almost said The Shining too. You just beat me to it. Selena was relieved that no one was making her feel stupid or blurted out 2 words answers for the 6-word clue. Ron stood and began acting out a clue for his team. They played 3 rounds for charades. Hugh was a walking trivia encyclopedia, so he easily guessed whatever his teammates acted out. After the first round, Selena kept her mouth shut to avoid further embarrassment, but her team soundly beat Ron's team, which included Farisa, Chad, and Ava's husband, Marshall. Finally, Ron threw up his hand. I give up. We need to play something else. He picked up his plastic mug and looked into it. Selena stood. Would you like another cream soda? Ron glanced at the big filled bowl that had canned drinks. I think I drank them all. She laughed. We got more in the fridge in the garage. I'll go get some. You sure? Ron said. I can drink something else. I don't want to be a bother. No bother, Selena assured him. Ava told Marshall, why don't you go and get your guitar from the car, sweetie? We can play Name That Tune. Huey groaned. Ava winked at Selena. Music is the dark hole of Huey's trivia verse. Selena grinned. I'm pretty good at coming up with song titles. Hurry up, then, Ava said. We'll keep the same teams. Maybe you can carry Huey. I'm hurrying, Lena said, chuckling. I'm hurrying, Selena said, chuckling. What a fun night, she thought, as she headed around the house to the garage. She was really glad she suggested it. Selena hadn't much one-on-one time with Cad during the evening, but she'd been watching him. He's been at ease, laughing and talking easily. He seemed like his old self. What a relief. Pushing open the back door of the garage, Selena flipped the lights. They ran out of bulbs with the right voltages, and they had to substitute Wimmy 60-watt bulbs into overhead lights. The bulbs didn't throw enough light to brighten the whole garage. Much of the space sat in pockets of dingy darkness. Selena went past the SUV in their small red pickup. They'd driven it home the previous week. She strode towards the extra fridge tucked against the wall. The fridge was flanked by several stacks of boxes Chade hadn't had time to unpack yet. His workshop space was still waiting to be set up. Next to the boxes, the lawnmower, weed whacker, blower, bush trimmer, hoses, and a few other yard maintenance odds and ends were in the tangle that Chade promised he'd sort out soon. Next to this jumble, a shop vac cat sat on top of the metal workbench that Chade hadn't yet put into place. As Selena reached the fridge, her gaze skimmed over the shop vac. She started opening the fridge door. Her hand froze. She flicked her gaze back towards the shop vac. Selena's heart catapulted into her throat. She gasped. Masked a small white robot with black eyes stood upright. It was Lally. It had to be. It looked just like the robot in the photos. The robot didn't move, but it was facing Selena. She felt like it was watching her. For several seconds, Selena was frozen. While her heart beat, galloped, invisible mints crawling around her arm, she stared at Lally in shock. When Lally remained emotionless, Selena whipped open the fridge and grabbed a six-pack of cream soda. Letting the fridge door slam, she looked toward the shop face again. In the second it took her open to close the fridge and look that way again, she debated whether she wished the robot would be gone or still be there. Which would be worse? The robot was still there. Selena turned and raced back to the garage, slamming the door behind her. She ran around the house, slowing her pace only that she was within view of her guests. Back near the gas fire pit, she handed a can of soda to Hugh and put the rest of the sodas in a bowl of ice. She casually walked over to Cade. Marshall was tuning up his guitar. Everyone else was chanting. Chade was having a conversation with Ava about some coding issue they were facing in a project they were working on together. Selena stepped up beside Chade and had put a hand on his arm. He couldn't miss the fact that her hand was trembling. She looked at Ava. Sorry to interrupt, but I need to steal him for a minute. Chade raised his eyebrow in question. I need you in the garage for a minute, honey. Selena told him. Everything okay? Chade asked. Yeah, just... She gave Ava a tight smile. Sorry, I'll bring him back, right back. Ava smiled. No problem. She turned toward her husband. What is it? Chade said. As Selena grabbed his hand and pulled him towards the garage, she was trotting. He stumbled over the tree root. Then he, too, started jogging, picking up her urgency. Selena hesitated at the garage door. Are you going to tell me what's wrong? Chade asked. Selena didn't answer him. She took a deep breath and opened the door. The garage lights were still on. She left them on purposefully. She hadn't wanted to turn them off before she was out of the garage. Not that thing in there. The fact that it wasn't moving when she left had done very little to lower her panic level. Selena stepped into the garage and pointed toward the shop vac. Look, she said. After she spoke, she got into the courage to do the same thing she was asking Chade to do. What am I looking at? Chade asked. Selena blinked at the empty spot of the workbench next to the shop vac. The robot was gone. It was there. What was there, Chade asked. Did a raccoon get in here? A shoe went away last week. Selena shook her head. She quickly scanned the garage. The robot wasn't in sight. That didn't mean anything. The garage had way too many places to hide. Selena groaned. Now she was getting as paranoid as Chad was. Chad stepped in front of Selena. I'll ask again. What's going on? Selena looked up at him. She swallowed. I saw Lally. I think it was Lally. It was a white robot that looked exactly like the one in the picture. And where do you see him? Chad interrupted. She pointed next to the shop vac. Chad stood across the garage. He looked all around the workbench and behind the boxes on the near side of the fridge. Then he turned and began searching the rest of the garage. Selena stood over the door, poising for reasons that had no foundation in logic. To run. Her mind was a tangle incorporating thoughts. A funny white noise-like sound buzzed in her ear. What was going on? Chade returned to Selena, a fiery branching skin between his brows. I didn't imagine it, Selena said. I didn't say you did, Chade said. But, Selena began. Chade took her hand. She didn't resist when she pulled her out of the garage and closed the door behind him. He, too, left the lights on. We have guests, Chade said. They're going to be wondering what we're doing. Selena nodded. He was right. Now wasn't the time to talk about what she's seen. It wasn't the time to think about it either. They rounded the corner of the house and Selena passed on her happy ghostly smile. Sorry about that, she called out. A little rodent issue, Cade lied. Selena knows how naturally the lights sound, but he didn't take the time to think about that either. The day after the party began, Chad was gone when Selena woke up. He found a note on his pillow. The note said she knew immediately contained another lie. Sorry, got called into work. Love you. Chad never got called into work on a Saturday. He was merely avoiding her. He didn't want to talk about what had happened. Well, neither did she. She wanted to forget about it. Selena got up and looked outside. The day was bright. She didn't feel like taking a walk. What did she feel like doing? The truth was, however much she wanted to forget what had happened, Selena was rattled by it. Really, really rattled. Selena got up, pulled on her dark terracloth robe, and went down the hall. What she needed was a long, hot bath. As Selena scuffled towards the bathroom, she thought about the master site they intended to have. They planned to knock out a wall and steal some space from the guest bedroom so they can create an ensuite bathroom for the master bedroom. They just discussed, a couple of days before the get-together, whether to tackle that or the kitchen next. She was thinking an ensuite should come first. Selena went into the bathroom. She left the bathroom door open. She always left the bathroom door open when she took a bath. Even when Chad was home, she didn't like steaming up the room. Turning up the tab at the end of the clawfoot tub under the window, Selena ran the water until it got hot. She adjusted the temperature, put in the drain plug, and poured some muscle-relaxing bath salts into the water. The bath salts were a combination of Eucim salt and geranium and juniper essential oil. Selena inhaled the scent of the oils and let them try to soothe her. They failed miserably, but she hoped the bath itself would do the trick. Because the farmhouse sat on the front of their 5 acres and the arc was thick and apple trees around the back of the house, Selena never worried about pulling in the shade over the window above the tub. Their property was secure and private. No one was around. Selena waited until the tub was half full. Then she dropped her robe and started to pull off her nightskirt. When it was almost over her head, she froze. She yanked the nightshade back on. Someone was watching her. She was sure of it. Selena leaned forward the window and scanned the backyard, and she went and looked towards the tree. Her gaze shot from one tree to the next. She didn't see anyone. Selena frowned, even more rattled than she had been before. She reached out and pulled the shade. Then she turned and closed the bathroom door. Selena's bath wasn't as relaxing as she hoped it would be. In fact, it was almost torturous. She tried several times to lean back and close her eyes, but she was too much on the alert. She kept thinking she could hear sounds coming from another part of the house. Once, she was sure she heard a creak in the attic overhead. Twice, she thought she heard footsteps on the stair. Finally, about 15 minutes, Selena gave up. She got out of the tub, drained it, and quickly put on her robe on. Hurrying back to the bedroom, she dressed in jeans and t-shirt, and then she went through the entire house, making sure she was alone. Selena checked every room and every closet. She even looked inside the awful truck, which was now back in the rear of the closet in the third bedroom. It was still empty. After she assured herself that she was alone, Selena tried to work. It didn't do any good. She couldn't focus. She kept hearing sounds in the house. Once, when the refrigerator's composure kicked in, she practically leaped out of her chair. Work wasn't working. She was a knot of nerves. Selena abandoned her office. She grabbed her purse, went out to the pickup, drove out of town. She spent the afternoon antiquating, coming home in a vintage skirt, antique hall table, and a pair of 100-year-old picture candle holders. She tried to tell herself that she imagining everything that happened that night before that morning. Over the next 2 weeks, though, it became abundantly clear that Selena had imagined nothing. She really was being watched. Either that, or she was losing her mind. No matter what Selena did when she was at home, she felt tingles between her shoulder blades. She could actually feel someone or something gaze boring into her. It wasn't just when she was alone either. It happened when Jade was around, during the evenings and on the weekends too. After just a week of relentless sensations of being observed constantly, Selena, laying awake during the night, decided to curiously search she had done for the house, look into every room and closet. Weren't through enough. Selena's dad, wedding day advice, spurred her to nudge her. Trust your instincts. Her instincts told her that she needed to look in every nook and cranny of her house. When Jade left to work the next day, Selena made sure the house was locked up tight so nothing and no one could enter while she searched. Then she placed through every tight space in the house. She opened every cabinet, every drawer. She looked under every piece of the furniture. She looked behind anything and everything that had more than an inch of space between it. In the middle of the search, though, in her bedroom, Selena stopped and sat down on the floor. She dropped into her hands. Who was she kidding? She wasn't being watched enterologically. Not only wasn't totally unrealistic, it didn't fit the facts. Selena got off the floor. She went down to her office and closed the door behind her. She pulled the shade. She sat on her desk and opened her laptop. She brought up the new document. On the top of it, she typed facts. Then she typed the facts that she knew them. Lally was a robot that really existed. Lally went missing in Freddy's Pizzaplex. Jade saw Lally after it, not he. Selena refused to refer Lally as he, went missing. Chad thought he trapped Lally in the truck. Chad kept the truck with him locked up from that point on. Selena unlocked the truck. When Chad opened the trunk, it was empty. Selena saw Lally in the garage. Selena had taken a symbiotic logic class in college. It had been effective, chosen as a lurk, but what she learned came in handy now. She ran her facts through a logic equation and came up with two possible conclusions. Either of them were made her happy. One logical conclusion, based on the facts, was that Lally is real, and although not easily proven, the correlation of this conclusion was that Lally was watching Selena. This conclusion, however, went so insane, logically or not, that led to the other possible conclusion: Selena is losing her mind. Figuredly, that would help her in the business world. Selena had also taken several psychological courses in college. When one of those courses, they practiced paranoia. Paranoid people suffering from delusions were always convinced their conclusions were logical. The problem, however, was their conclusions were based on logical fallacies. Selena went back over the list and facts. Was she really sure they were facts? Or was she just grasping the logic to cover up the real fact, that she was becoming paranoid and delusional? Selena deleted the document and closed her laptop. Her hands were shaking. She couldn't stay in the house another second. Selena left the office, ignored the immediate awareness of being observed as she walked into the kitchen. She grabbed her purse and went out to pick up. As she packed out the garage, she realized where she needed to go. "Well, hello, dear," Janice said when she opened her door and saw Selena standing in the front porch. "I'm sorry, I didn't call first, but..." Janice waved away Selena's words. "What did I tell you about knocking the door? My home is your home. You can come and go as long as you please." Janice had given Selena the key to her house that day. Selena and Kay married, and she indeed told Selena to treat Janice's house as her own. Selena, however, hadn't been able to bring herself to do that. Besides, she was afraid that if she did so, Janice would assume that open door policy was recoverable. Selena loved Janice, but she didn't want her mother-in-law dropping in unannounced. Janice, who was wearing a ruffled pastel pink apron over yellow upholstery pants and a green florid pattern blouse, held Selena through the living room and her into her large, old-fashioned kitchen. Janice led her flats on the yellow-blue lateen floor. In the kitchen, Selena inhaled deeply. The room smelled like butter and cinnamon and sugar. The scent was enticing. It almost made her forget why she was here. Janice guessed her the baking ingredient and pan across her yellow Forme countertops. "I was just whipping up a batch of my Ray's cinnamon rolls for the lady club," Janice said. "Would you like to help?" "I'd love to," Selena said honestly. Maybe making cinnamon rolls was a better idea than having a conversation she wanted to have. Baking usually relaxes Selena. She hoped it would do so today. Selena went through the pantry and plucked in a simple blue apron, no ruffles, from the back of the pantry door. Janice had given the apron to Selena to use when they cooked together. "Frills just don't suit you, dear. You're far too beautiful to hide those elegant curves under flounces." For the next hour, Selena and Janice spread out dough and sprinkled it with butter, cinnamon, and sugar. Then they rolled up the dough and cut it into a classic cinnamon roll pinwheel. After the rolls were in the oven, Janice put water for the tea. "You're usually peach spice, dear. Do you have any cinnamon?" Selena asked. "Oh my. Do you need a deep stressor?" "You could say that." Janice didn't ask why Selena needed a deep stressor. Selena liked that about Janice. She never prayed. Janice made the tea, and she and Selena sat in Janice's round kitchen table. Selena toyed with the pale blue and yellow paint plate mat as she let Janice chatter about her bridge club for a few minutes, and then Selena decided that the conversation she came here to couldn't have put off any longer. Speaking of games, Selena said what she knew was a pathetic skeeg. What is it that Jade liked so much about Lally's game? Janice didn't seem to mind the abrupt subject change. Why, I'm not sure. She took a sip of tea. It's funny you asked. That's something I did wonder about the time at first. I thought it was the colors in the area. He never liked my suffer color palette. Selena thought about the rich burgundy, dark greens, and dark blues that Kale liked to wear in his unique Taos khakis. She nodded. But I decided that wasn't right. I think what it was, Janice leaned back in her chair, the game made him feel special. Because the game was just for two, and Lally was a robot. I think Chad felt like he was chosen child or something. Now, heaven only knows why he needed that feeling. As an only child, he got nothing but tons of attention from me and his dad, until his dad passed, of course. Rest his soul. She shook her head, and maybe that was the part. He was an only child. Maybe he wanted a brother. Maybe Lally was like a brother to him. I'm really not sure. I do know that Chad didn't want to share Lally with anyone. What do you mean? Selena asked. Oh, I'm just remembering how upset Chad got one day when another boy, a boy he knew from school named Daniel, snacked into the game. My oh my, was Chad angry. He was furious, his little face all screwed up with red when he got home that day. The game is only for two, he said to me over and over. You should have thought that Daniel had gotten something unforgivable, a trigus, instead of just relentlessly being action of sneaking into Lally's game with Chad. Janice sighed. Daniel was a sweet little boy. Adorable freckles across his big nose. I knew his mother. It was so tragic that he died in a horrible incident. Selena set down her teacup to the acid rattled in the stomach. Janice noticed. What accident? Selena asked. Janice got up and walked over to the oven. She turned the oven light and bent over to look through the glass window inside the oven. Oh, they're racing nicely. You're really getting a hang of kettling, dear. An accident? Sid tried to get back on the track. Janice acted like she didn't hear that question. Maybe she didn't. Selena had noticed that Janice tended to drift in and out of the conversation at will, and as if something she had better things to think about than whatever was being talked about. Selena tried a different question. Why did Janice like Lally so much? I think Lally's kind of a scary looking, Janice supplied. Selena raised her eyebrow. Yeah, I tend to agree, Janice said, but then little boys are odd creatures. Chad also liked snails and Flug when he was small. He was always poking at them with sticks, not to hurt them, mind you. He just wanted to see what they'll do. He thought they were fascinating. Selena smiled at the image of Chad poking a slug. Then her mind replaced the image with Chad and the slug with Lally. Selena shivered. How did Lally work exactly? She said. Was it programmed to run and hide or sneak up on the kids or what? Selena wanted to understand how the robot could be doing what it was doing in her house. She was nearly 100% sure that Lally was her stalker. Oh, no, nothing like that, dear, Jenna said. Lally didn't move. The kids had to carry him around and hide him themselves. Seemingly somewhat silly to me, of course. If you hide a thing, you know where it was. But it was all in a grand game of pretend, I guess. Janice blinked and glanced. She opened her mouth to ask another question, but no words came out. What else was there to ask? Selena knew what she needed to know. Wiping her suddenly moist eyes with a trembling hand, Selena stood. I have to get home and get some stuff done. She lied. If Janice thought it was odd that Selena practically ran out of the house and leaped into the pickup, Janice kept her reaction hidden. She smiled and waved as Selena drove away. Selena managed a twitchy wave in return. She couldn't summon up a smile. Her hand grappling in the steering wheel so tightly that it started to ache. Selena's burned rubber as she accelerated away from Jenna's home. She ignored the posted speed limit. Although her eyes were on the road, she wasn't really seeing it until her gaze flicked over an oncoming SUV. A familiar SUV. It was Gade. Selena looked straight ahead as she passed her husband. Had he seen her? Jade often got tunnel vision when he drove. Maybe he hadn't noticed the pickup. The bright red pickup. Selena gazed in the rearview. The SUV turned off, heading towards Jenna's house. So what if Jade did see her? Maybe Selena was overreacting. Maybe she only thought she knew what was going on. And again, maybe she was leaping to logical conclusions that weren't logical at all. A ripening of something that felt like a static electricity, skittering through Selena's spine. Was it groundless anxiety, or was it truly justified fear? Selena didn't know. All she knew was she wanted to get away. Would she be fleeing from Lally, or from Gade? Or would she be fleeing from herself? It doesn't matter. She was fleeing. Back in the farmhouse, Selena ran down the hallway to the attic door, hesitant for only a couple of seconds. She flung open the door and trotted up the steps. At the top of the stairs, she quickly pulled the string to turn on the bar bulb. She looked around. The static looked at the same as the last several times that she checked it. Rushed across the open space, Selena grabbed two suitcases, the two largest. She pulled them across the attic. Their rubber wheels made scuffling noise against the buckling floorboards. Selena shoved the suitcase out the attic, onto the landing on the top of the stairs. Then she dragged the cases down the stairs. The skirt, the thump, the skirt, the thump, the skirt, thump up. Their progress down the stairs made her cringe. At the bottom of the stairs, Selena shoved the suitcase into the hall. She turned and closed the door behind her. She pulled the suitcase down the hall to the bedroom. Selena hadn't allowed herself to sense anything since she left Jenna's house. She didn't think she could function if she let herself feel. When Selena left the suitcase onto the bed, although her emotions demanded that she acknowledge them, she started crying. Stop it. She gestured at herself. She wiped her eyes. She needed to focus. Selena rushed to the bedroom and began pulling out her clothes. She tried to think carefully enough to grab only what she really needed. Other than packing and getting out of the house, she had no clear plan in mind. How could she? She wasn't reasoning. She was reacting. Selena finished the barrage and started towards the closet. She was reaching for the door handle when she heard a thump downstairs. She froze. Holding her breath, she listened. She just started to breathe again when the thud was followed by the rustle sound, which wasn't far away. Selena turned and stared at the open bedroom door. Why hadn't she closed it? Abandoning her packing job, Selena crossed to the open doorway. She opened down the hallway. It was empty. A single tap came from the stairs leading down to the first floor. Selena glanced back at the bedroom. Should she ignore the sounds and just keep packing? No way. If she wasn't here alone, she wanted to know about it. Selena tiptoed towards the stairs. She cranked her neck to examine the whole flight. It was empty. Selena looked around. Okay, she'll do this simultaneously. Starting at the empty bedroom, Selena began her search. She first opened the closet and checked the trunk. It was empty. Of course. Selena moved on to the bedroom they intended to turn into a spare room. It had now had a bed, but the bed wasn't made up, and they hadn't added any other furniture. Selena got down on her knees and looked under the bed. Nothing. She stood and went to the closet. Selena had put the lesser-used parts of her wardrobe in this closet. She had too many clothes. She knew that. But she loved clothes. She put most of her vintage finds in this closet. Throwing open the closet door, she pushed back the long dresses and skirts. Nothing but was behind them. The only thing on the floor of the closet was a couple dozen pairs of Selena's shoes, the ones that didn't fit in the master bedroom closet. On the shelf above the closet's hat boxes containing the hats she rarely wore were stacking almost to the ceiling. Selena left the guest room. She opened the linen closet too. How it was only supposed to hold. Stacks of towels, sheets, and bales of toilet paper and paper towels filled the closet shelves. Selena closed the closet door. Selena already knew nothing was in her bedroom. She'd just been in there. She also just checked the attic. She had to go downstairs. Selena walked slowly to the top of the staircase. She listened. 2 clicks and a rattle came from the direction of the kitchen. Selena steeled herself. She stepped up as lightly as she could onto the first step, doing her best to avoid the creaking spots of the stairs. Selena crept down the living room. There, she paused. A faint scratching sound came from the dining room. She headed that way. They had to yet fill the hunch that had come into the shining dining room. Its upsy display cabinets were empty. Selena hurried over to the hunch and opened its bottom cabinet. They were empty too. The dining room was separated from the kitchen by the pocket doors. They were tucked back to the doorway was open. Selena stepped through it and surveyed the kitchen. It was deserted. She crossed to the pantry. She opened the door and looked at the shelves full of canned and boxed foods and baking supplies and small kitchen utensils. She felt her tears were trying to return. She had so much fun organizing the pantry, but that had been before. A rasp came from the living room. It sounded like something was being dragged. Selena grabbed the rolling pin from the nearest pantry shelf. She ran into the living room, the rolling pin cocked in her shoulder. The living room was empty. Selena lowered the rolling pin. Now what? She searched the whole house. She looked up the stairs, thinking about her abandoning packing job. Was she overreacting? Selena walked over to the sofa and sat down. She laid the rolling pin in the seat next to her. She leaned against the soft sofa back and picked up the tulip and cream strip throw pillow. She hugged the pillow. Was she just being paranoid? Was she just about to blow up her marriage, her very new marriage, for no good reason? Selena remembered her brother's wedding day advice. Don't screw it up. Was she screwing it up? Something rustled behind the sofa. Selena scrappled for the rolling pin as she started to turn. Before Selena got a grip of the rolling pin or see what was behind her, a hand camped over her mouth. Selena's heart kicked into overdrive. She tried to scream, but the hand muffled the noise. Selena failed for the rolling pin, the back of her head knocking against it, and rolled off the sofa. It hit the rug with a thunk. Shh, Gage said. Selena twisted her neck so she could look up and behind her. Jade was leaning over the back of the sofa. Had he been hiding there? Why? What was he doing? Had it been him making all those sounds? Again, why? Selena goggled at her husband. Jade put his fingers over his lip. His gaze, intense, almost deranged, darted all over the room. Selena stared into the face of the man she loved for over 2 years. It was a face she thought she knew better than her own. And the man was someone she knew that well, too. She planned to spend her life with him. He was like an extension of her. Now she barely recognized him. Yes, Jade still had the thick black hair and brows, the green eyes, the sculpted cheeks shadowed by his black whiskers, as usual. He still had the wide mouth and even the white teeth, but all those features are now look distorted somehow. They look like they've been infected, tinged by something dark and menacingly. Selena tried to wrench her head away from Jade's hand. He pulled her tighter against the back of the sofa, turning her head so she couldn't see him anymore. She felt the pressure of his head against the top of hers. If you upset Lally, Jade said, you'll end up with the truck next. Selena felt the bottom drop of her stomach. She struggled to suck in air for her nose, which was practically covered by Jade's hot, hard palm. Jade's breath was sour. He never had breath like that before. She smelled his morning breath and his starlight breath with his peanut butter breath. But this is arched, as if he has inhaled whatever poison he had kept hidden inside the many, many years. Promise you won't scream if I take my hand away, Chad whispered. His whisper was so quiet that Selena could barely make out words. His warm, repulsive breath puffed into her ear. Selena nodded several times. Why bother screaming? No one but Jade could hear her anyway. Promise? Jade whispered. Selena nodded again. Jade took his hand away from Selena's mouth. He turned and opened her mouth. Jade made another shushing gesture. He leaned even closer to her. Don't speak. You really don't want to upset Lally, Jade whispered. Selena used every ounce of willpower she had to keep her expression blank. She didn't move or make a sound. Jade hurried around the sofa and sat down next to hers. She didn't look at him again. She couldn't. She stared straight ahead, and she stayed silent. Inside her mind, however, Selena was screaming her head off. She was tearing towards the door. She was coming for gripes and with only logical conclusions presented by the facts. Her husband's insane. Selena looked towards the entryway. Could she make it to the front door before Jade caught her? She glanced at Jade. He cocked his head at her. Then he, too, looked towards the front door. He shook his head, slowly, once. He returned to scanning the room. Jade was sitting close enough to Selena that she could feel the heat of his muscular thighs against her. She was so familiar with the solid feel of him, now the pressure against his own leg felt foreign, invasive. You killed Daniel, didn't you? Selena whispered. She didn't know what she was going to ask the question until it was out her mouth. She didn't have to let herself consciously think about the conclusion she reached when Janice had told her about the boy who had died. But clearly, Selena had known. Why else had she raced home to Peck? Why else had she planned to leave the man she loved? Jade turned to stare at her. He shook his head. No, he whispered. He shook his head again. It was Lally. He turned and looked behind him. He cranked his neck to look up the stairs. He shook his head a third time. The game is only for two. Prickles of terror cascaded through Selena's nervous system. Her throat closed, and she fought to breathe. Somehow, though, she was able to keep her expression tranquil. Selena dropped her gaze, looking for the rolling pin. Her shoulders slumped. The rolling pin had spun over the rug when it hit. It was now under the coffee table. Selena would never be able to reach it before Jade reacted. Turning towards Jade, Selena tried to look loving and concerned, knowing that what Lally did must have been terrible for you, she whispered. Jade looked at Selena as if he had no idea what she was talking about. She tamped down her repulsive and touched Jade's forehead. Jade, honey, if Lally's in here, we need to leave. Why don't we leave? Jade frowned. He turned and looked toward the front door. He shook his head. Selena didn't think. She just acted. Leaping off the sofa, Selena lunged for the brass lamp on the nearest end table. She yanked it free from the plug set on the floor. Jade started to stand and reach for Selena, but before he could, she grabbed the lamp by its neck, crunching its thumb straight. Then she swung the lamp like a baseball bat. She bashed its base against the side of Jade's head. Jade staggered back, then fell into the coffee table. He hit his temple on the table, and he was limp when she stumbled on the floor. Selena couldn't wait to see if Jade would move. She dropped the lamp and took off. Because Jade's body blocked Selena's path in the front door, she started towards the kitchen. She hadn't taken 2 steps, though, when she saw a hint of white out of the corner of her eye. Selena slipped her gaze towards it, and she did. Jade moaned and shifted. Selena lost her ability for a reason. She turned and groped for the stairs. At the top of the stairs, Selena realized she's been an idiot. She would have tried to make it to the back door. Now, only she was in the second floor. Up here, she had no way in the house unless she wanted to leap from a second-floor window. She glanced back down the stairs. She heard Jade groan again. No, she couldn't risk going down there again. She looked down the hall. Where could she hide? A scuffling sound from the living room. Selena ran down the hall. When she reached the guest bedroom door, she dashed into the room. She glanced towards the closet, flinged it open, and dove in the veil of her vintage closet. She turned to the vial and turned and pulled the closet door open. It might have not been the best hiding place in the world, but a familiarity of Selena's things gave her comfort. She could draw on the comfort to help her think about her next plan. She didn't know what to do next. She knew she couldn't hide in here forever, of course. The house wasn't big enough. If Jade reached for her, she'll eventually find her. Maybe before then, though, she'd come up with a plan. Selena crouched behind the old dresses. Her breathing was so loud in the cramped darkness that it sounded like she was sharing the space with a pack of panting dogs. Selena gulped air for several seconds. She had to quiet down. She couldn't listen for Jade if all she could hear was her own billowing insulations. Selena pulled herself into a tight little ball. She stared into the darkness pressing in around her. Although a twinkle of light reached to the closet from under the door, it was only enough to give the clothes that shield Selena a ghostly presence. Selena stared at the dim floating shapes and tried to steady her breathing. Selena was starting to get control of herself when the clothes dabbed around her wished. And then a whisper came out of darkness. The whisper message was short, but it was filled with meaning. Hi. Selena screamed louder than she'd ever screamed in her life. Jade's consciousness swapped into darkness. His thoughts were blank by the murky. Throughout this mental nothingness, however, sound reached him. He heard the echo of piercing screams. Then the curtain of oblivion muffled his hearing, too. He was aware of nothing at all. Jade lifted his head. He groaned. He felt like the concentration crew was pounding nails in his skull. Putting his head on the hand, Jade winced. He felt a knot near his temple. Trying to sit up, Jade blinked to focus. The room spun. He was suddenly nauseous. He stopped moving and just sat, his back to the sofa. Jade tried to find a concert thought. His mind felt sluggish, mushy. What was he doing on the floor? Jade tried to remember. Selena! Jade struggled to his feet. The room spun again, but he managed to stay upright. How long had he been out? He looked for his watch. Too long. The fog in his brain clearly abruptly. Selena! Jade called out. Jade's chest constricted. He tore out the living room, racing through the dining room. Jade buzzed into the kitchen. He sprang towards the pantry and flung the door open. It was empty. Burrowed out the kitchen. Jade hurried down the hall towards Selena's office. He looked into the room. When he didn't see her, he ran to the half bath. She wasn't there either. Jade's returned to the living room. He checked the coat closet. He found nothing but coats and boots. Jade pedaled towards the stairs. He took the steps 2 at a time and was in the upstairs hallway in seconds. He rushed down the hallway, throwing open doors as he went. He looked in the bathroom in his bedroom. He checked the master closet. Jade dashed back into the hallway. He started towards the guest room. Then he stopped. No. He whispered. Jade turned towards the closet door of the third bedroom. The door was just a door, but it suddenly seemed to pulse the rim that matched Jade's rapid heartbeat. Jade took a step forward the door. He wavered and steadied himself. He took another step. Finally, he forced himself to move normally again. He ran to the door. Jade's hand slipped in the knob when he tried to grasp it. His palm was sweating. He wiped them on his khakis and grabbed the knob again. He turned it. Jade charged in the empty room, not bothering to look around. Jade sped directly to the closet, throwing the door open. He tossed aside the blanket in his pile in the trunk. He dropped to his knees in front of him. Jade gripped the trunk's lid. Taking a deep breath, Jade opened the trunk. No, he cried out. Jade felt his head contorted with horror. Tears filled his eyes. He clapped a hand over his mouth so he couldn't be sick. He wanted to look away from the greasy contents of the trunk, but he couldn't. As he continued to stare in the trunk, Jade's shoulders convulsed. His chest heaved. Finally, he couldn't look any longer. He fell back. He dropped his head into his hands. Jade's head whisked back, though, when a whisper came from above the truck. It came from empty shelves above the hanging rod of the closet. The whisper contained 5 familiar words. The game is only for 2. The hissed words drifted down to Jade like a spray of toxic mist. They engulfed him, and they left him in silence. Jade reached the top of the stairways leading to the attic in his new house. He sat down the stacks of 3 boxes. He lunged up the stairs. He looked across the attic. His beautiful fiancée. How could she have gotten so lucky? He hit the jackpot. Again. Debbie was a gorgeous blonde, blue-eyed, pensive, and as sweet as she was stunning. Debbie was any man's dream, and for Jade, she was a reality. Hey, babe, Daddy said. This is the coolest, isn't it? I never had an attic before. Jade smiled. He loved Debbie enthusiasm for life. Above them, rain pattered on the attic roof. The gentle tapping was soothing. So was the dark cloud skies that hung over the house like a gale squall. Jen and Debbie were moving to their new house, a big old Victorian on the outskirts of the city. They got in the house for a song because it needed a lot of work, but Jay didn't mind. He liked a fixer-upper. Jay walked over to Debbie and wrapped his arms around her slit shoulders. Yeah, it's the coolest. Like you. Debbie laughed. She tilted her head back and kissed the dimple on Jay's chin. Stepping out of his embrace, he looked around. I can't wait to finish the attic. Debbie said. It would make an incredible art studio. She crossed to the big enclosure window at the end of the attic. She threw her arms out and then spun in circles. When the sun's out, the window's going to let in some amazing lights. An incredible art studio for an incredible artist, Jade said. Debbie laughed. She returned to Jade. You're the one who's incredible. Head programmer for the biggest tech company in the state. Hard to beat that. Jade gave Debbie an aw shucks look, but he didn't disagree. His new job was going to be great. He still couldn't believe he landed. He couldn't wait to get started. He had to move away from his mom to take the job. But she hadn't been upset about that. Janice had assured him that he'll be fine. It was sweet of you to move back to be close to me, sweetie, she said. And I love having you nearby. But now I think you need to move on. And I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. Debbie stepped away from Jade and started shifting boxes around. She set one box on top of the stack of two. Then she cocked her head and looked behind the stack. Hey, I've never seen this truck before, Debbie said. What's in this old thing? Jade crossed to Debbie and put his arm around her narrow waist. Oh, he said. It was just some childhood baggage. Jade steered Debbie towards the attic door. I'm ready for a break, babe, aren't you? Let's go down and have some of that lemonade that new neighbor left for us. What was her name? Something old-fashioned? Debbie smiled. Winfred. That's it, Jade said. Jade ushered Debbie out the attic and turned back to the flip of the way. Hesitant, half listening to Debbie chattering about an aunt who had an old-fashioned name of Octavia, Jade looked at the truck. The battered old chest seemed to peer back at Jade as he glanced at it. Jade turned off the lights. He closed the attic door. Thunder rumbled as the skies darkened even more. The attic was swathed in somber darkness. Nothing but blackness could be seen in the vast space, until two small pinpoints of light peeked up over the top of the old truck.